Alright, EA Ermor turned 85, and Niflheim has ended our non-aggression pact, so things are gonna change here. And here we are doing a variety of site searching. At least only one of them is remote, which doesn't work out for us. I think some of these guys are just kind of in place and don't have anything else to do at the moment. But yeah, none of this works out for us, and this is kind of questionable to be searching this late. The summons, though, will be very useful. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get our Golem geared up in time, but yeah, possibly. And then sadly, one of our shamans gets eaten by a horror, but you know, that's what happens when you lose the lanterns. And then we actually have 2 hostile seduction attempts, and this one is in a different area. Yeah, this looks, I think, on top of Helheim. Luckily, our white mage here does have some bodyguards, which is pretty essential because we have a lot of kit on this guy. And I think we have lost a white mage to this particular seducer before. We're trying to control a magic being, which she is a magic being. Yeah, Pillar of Fire. I'm assuming that's coming from us. Yeah, Incinerate. Like, yeah, man, this item is just really effective. And I think we've put ourselves to sleep. Yep, we managed to blast out some fire, but I think we are going to lose this, which is very sad. Yeah, we do. I think, we'll try to Mind Hunt, although I kind of have been handing out some of the Mind Hunt gear because I'm not really expecting them to be super effective against Niflheim. I'm just going to double check, what item is this? Okay, yeah, this Amulet of the Dead. Okay, note to self. Definitely useful for assassins. And then, one of our augurs resisted, and sadly, he's one that had some bodyguards. And yeah, we've seen this one. This is on top of Russ's throne fort. So we were expecting to lose this augur. We were hoping to just, leave these guys in place as diplomatic cover, but that's irrelevant at this point now that Niflheim has ended the non-aggression pact. It was always a bit of a long shot. Yeah, Russ is actually making quite a few attacks against us, which is unfortunate. We really need him to not be doing this. Now I think we are set up. Yeah, so we have a Mind Burn Communion here, and we have a fellow that's going to punch out some bugs, which is good because these long dead horsemen are pretty fast, and they're going to tear through our province defense pretty quickly. But yeah, we get the Mind Burn off, and I think that's all she wrote. I think it only took us the 1 Mind Burn, and of course now with no leaders, they just disintegrate. So that one worked out about as good as we could have expected. Potentially got a little lucky there. Had the Mound King resisted a couple of Mind Burn attempts, I think the horsemen would have burned through our province defense and our bugs a little more quickly than I was hoping. But regardless, we'll take the win. And then let's see, this is like a scout? No, just a chieftain. He's just, attacking us with whatever he has available. And I think this is actually on top of the fort. And I think this guy's actually just going to set him to a communion slave? No, interesting. Maybe because there's no communion master, he doesn't bother? Okay, he's just pinging to see what's on top of the fort, and not much. Maybe he was thinking that we had no commanders left and our stuff would just retreat. But no, we are happy to sacrifice augurs. We do that in all sorts of capacities, and so we have just left that augur there to quite literally hold the fort down for us. And so this is Niflheim trying to lock down Helheim. Yeah, no province defense here. This is another Rusian fort. And I don't think there should be any confusion about how that goes down. Yeah, so another fort locked down, and then let's see, we have an attack against, this is, our eagles. Totally forgot. Trying to lock down a fort. Quite a bit of province defense here, but only province defense. Of course, we only have great eagles, so this is I don't know, we'll see. I think we did manage, to snipe the commander. So we're definitely going to lose some eagles here, I think, or at least probably pick up, I think I saw some eagles disappear. So that does hurt a bit, and we may have had a route there. Let's double check. Yeah, so we lose 4 eagles, no routes, so they must have just been flying after, some of the routers. So, not the most efficient, attack ever, but we're trading units for time because we knew that Niflheim would be coming. We were hoping we were going to have a little more time, and then here is the reason that we were hoping we would have a little more time. Russ is attacking out against Niflheim, and it looks like it's just a spoiler attack. So let's see. Okay, interesting. Cast by no one. So it looks like this is a bit of a bug. This is like a province level enchantment that you can put on forts, and it creates a flame wall that you have to pass through. But since he's sallying out, I guess it just shows that it's here, but there's no fort here, so it's not present. I think he's probably just trying to trigger gem usage, would be my guess, because Yeah, I mean, the fire drakes just disappeared. I don't actually think that triggered gem usage. Maybe he was just hoping to get rid of some of the chaff. Like, the fire drakes can be fairly damaging, but in the cold and everything, and I'm pretty sure Niflheim took quite a bit of fire resistance. I think 10 on the bless. So yeah, not totally sure, what the plan was there. And then yeah, this is the province that's next to Helheim, and we're just raiding out. What is this, like swarm raiding? Nope. What? Oh yeah, okay. It's a communion. It's an augur communion. See, look. I don't know what you're talking about. Ishkur has always been an augur. We're definitely not scraping the bottom of the barrel at all, but I do think this will work out because just one province defense. So let's make sure, we didn't, oh yeah, we do lose someone, but we do conquer it. We have some retreats. Let's see, okay, so some bodyguards retreated. One of them made it back to friendly territory. That's fine. Like I said, sacrificing augurs is just a normal occurrence for us. And then let's see, we get attacked somewhere by Russ. Hopefully this is relatively minor. Okay, now this is actually I think it's a cap only mage. Definitely, one of their more powerful mages with a ring of returning. No gems though, interestingly. And we only have a little bit of province defense, so I think she's actually going to be able to come away with this. I think these ladies actually have decent stats. Yeah, I wonder, I don't think there's actually much, she didn't even bother blessing herself, so she has a lot of experience, and of course, they always get the size bonus whether or not they've been blessed, but still, surprisingly good stats on these ladies, and then, but we do manage to sneak through just a little bit of damage with a javelin, and then, of course, Ring of Returning activates, and she goes home. So that's fine, good riddance. Oh, right, and then we have, oh boy, and then we bump with Macone. This is just terrible timing. We really need this army. Maybe should have seen this coming. Probably should have reached out to this player as well. I don't know, Macone just hasn't been super active, so I was kind of counting on that. And okay, it looks like Ubar did not hang out, because who can say what the computer chooses to do or not do. So we were expecting to go up against their pretender plus assorted random chaff, and instead there's just a tiny bit of province defense here. Unfortunately, it looks like like I said, Macone, oh lordy. So, this is a ton of Gigantes, and, pretty much just a ton of Gigantes, as well as a Polemarch, who I'm assuming is leading them. I think this is the only Polemarch. He has 2 of these companion bracelets, which is actually an item that Ubar makes, so either he traded from them, or he has been fighting Ubar for a little while. I don't think it's, particularly great. It does look like it stacks in terms, because it summons in, some units, and, but pretty much it's just, we're up against a ton of Gigantes, which, I don't know, we'll see, right? Mage-wise, our army is much better, but we don't have a lot of chaff. Our chaff levels are kind of critically low to be going up against this much, this number of elite units. We are going to generate a decent number of skeletons, but unquestionably we're going to take losses. We're probably going to lose the majority of the fire snakes, and it looks like these guys are set on attack rear in this really long line formation, which, yeah, I mean, I've talked about it before. Don't get me wrong, it can work, right? And in this case, they are going to make it back to our mages, but I mean, we have enough bodyguards here. I don't know. I'm not a big fan, and you can see, it really spreads out his units in a lot of ways. This helps us out a lot because it allows our chaff to actually do some pretty decent damage. In fact, I think we might actually win up front here. And then once they start to get close, they're gonna get hammered, right? There's some liquefy, and I would imagine that pretty soon there's gonna be disintegrates and drain lives coming out from our mages. Now, I mean, that said, these Gigantes definitely can deal damage and kill our liches and bodyguards and white mages. So yeah, this is okay. Armies of Macone are routed. I wonder if I think there was only the one commander. So I think we managed to get the commander, but it might be an HP route. I don't know. I feel like we have not gotten that many kills. So yeah, I don't know. Macone's army is kind of more of a mid-game, early-game army. Definitely not enough caster support here, but they're also really small, so they don't have that many forts to produce mages out of. So probably just what they can pull off at this point. But yeah, a really unfortunate bump for us. Actually, we lose a whole lot less than I was expecting. So yeah, I think we've been forced into a really good place with our composition, or a really painful place, right? It was we're ready for this apocalyptic world that we exist in, whereas I don't know, I feel Macone not really ready. Of course, like really all we wanted to do was keep the computer off of our back. Like I don't even need this province. So I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Macone can have it. I'm going to need this army to try to defend thrones. Although that said, I do think that this connects us to that untaken independent throne, which, and I mean, if you think the independents are going to stop a Niflheim army, definitely not. So like that throne is now our responsibility probably, which is unfortunate because, once Niflheim takes Russ, and that's a big once, like, we'll see Russ is not done. But there's that, throne in Russ's cap circle, right, that we need to defend. And then, of course, there's the throne that we've been sitting on the whole game that we need to defend that's right on the border with Niflheim. And then, potentially there's also the throne in Agartha's territory that has like a really weak, unupgraded Rusian fort. I was actually thinking about tearing that fort down because once the fort gets built, you only upgrade it in its own like upgrade tier. So like even though we normally build much nicer forts, since it's already a Rusian fort, it only has like the crappy like Rusian upgrade path. So sometimes I think it is worth like pulling down the fort and doing it right. But I don't think we're gonna have time for that. So like I mean that is fairly deep in our territory. But like Niflheim is going to be pretty mobile. So anyway, we have a lot of places to defend, and we don't have that much to defend it with. It's going to be rough, but we always knew that. And of course, here comes the computer, because the computer doesn't understand the game like whatsoever, right? Game state? What is that? I see a province nearby, I attack. I should probably double check. I don't know. Maybe Macone went AI. I don't think they did. And then we have some unexpected events. Some adventurers are fleeing the forest. Fantastic. Actually, sometimes this can be really useful, but we don't have province defense or much province defense in a lot of places. So we're going to have to try to hold off an attack, and then like we lose some gold in the throne province that we're currently sharing with Russ. That is fine. And then we have, we lose some gold somewhere. Like it happens. And so here's our battle with the adventurers against independents. Oh no, this might be where one of our raiding groups is. No, okay, so we actually have some barbarians here. So all things considered, I think this is going to work out for us. Are any of you useful? Yeah, some of these adventurers actually are, right? This is really the best one. She's got the healer, which is a difficult attribute to get a hold of. Of course, as early age Ermor, we actually have healers, so not such a big deal. Nature 2, though, is always appreciated. This guy's a priest level 2, also a healer. Priest level 2 is kind of meh. And then, it's just some regular guys. Some of these guys are assassins. If it was earlier in the game and we had more gems, I would put too much kit on them. So I think we're going to come away with that. Let's just double check. We just lose one barbarian and none of the adventurers die in the combat. So, overall, that's a good thing. And then sadly, I was wondering, is still around and taking turns. It's great. They've been on just their capital forever. And I was I couldn't help myself. I'm why has nobody just finished them off? And well, here's the reason. So we get patrolled out immediately. And I think there's a pretty good chance that is going to finish this game out, right? Because it's to the point of the game where it's the really big powers, they have enough capitals, right? Is it really worth it to fight through this just to get another capital? No, not really. Now it's about thrones. So nicely done, And then we are breaking down some forts, but there's a pretty good chance we'll never be able to finish these. Yellow Mountains, ironically, right? This is where the throne is and where we're not really actually sieging, right? We just have the one augur. This is now the most important siege. So we'll have to think about that. This is that fort kind of down near Helheim that we jumped the eagles onto, but we're probably going to have to, I don't know. Right, we have one army that needs to cover 2 thrones, one of which we do not own. So do we really have time to go and capture some random fort? No, not really. We'll probably just leave the eagles on it and then maybe just have the eagles try to take it and hope that Russ doesn't gateway anything in. They haven't really been gatewaying stuff in anymore. So yeah, maybe the eagles can just take it for us. And then speaking of the eagles just taking it for us, well, I mean, of course, there's more eagles now back on Abyssia. But of course, we know that we can't just send the eagles into here because there's a ton of Vanheers, and we probably will never deal with those Vanheers. So alas, we may still Wind of Death them, I think that's actually the fastest way for our Augur Elders to make it back to our territory. I guess they could go back to the lab and like pick up teleport gear and teleport out, but if they die, it's a free trip home versus having to spend astral pearls to teleport them somewhere. Not to mention that they'll just die anyway due to murdering winter or something like that. Speaking of augurs and Augur Elders dying, a couple of them die of disease because somewhere in here surely, actually no, Burden of Time may have gotten dispelled. Wow, yeah, I don't see any notification for Burden of Time, so we'll have to take a look at that. Of course, like, yeah, still many of our guys are diseased and hurting, but, it looks like at least for a turn, Burden of Time will be turned off. So yeah, I'll catch you guys after the jump. All right, this is the situation and what we did about it. This is also recorded from the future. Let's jump into it. So probably the most important thing is we're going to take this fake siege. We're just trying to diplomatically hold things down and turn it into a real siege. So this will probably become our strongest army. More or less the same kind of stuff that we've seen. Trying to move away more and more from the human mages, but that's what we can recruit. So we still have quite a few human mages in here. We've got a lot more cold resistance running around in terms of gear. So, hopefully most of these mages, we'll see about this guy. Flame spirits do not love cold attacks. So we're hoping that Murdering Winter, will do a lot less against this army. We probably won't be facing against Russ, but against Niflheim. Of course, Niflheim is also easily able to cast Murdering Winter, and they're going to have the gems for it. They have a lot of water in their nation. So I think, regardless of which enemy this army ends up fighting, Murdering Winter is a very real possibility. There shouldn't be too much in here in terms of what's inside the fort, so hopefully we can capture it and retake it. Niflheim has, notified me that the non-aggression pact is ending. So if I'm remembering correctly, it'll be turn 88 that hostilities start, with attack orders being able to be issued on turn 87. So we have a few turns to prepare, and we can hopefully siege this down and take it before the war starts, so that we can, entrench ourselves a little bit. Otherwise, mostly just shifting mages around internally. We are, trying to set up for a couple of Wind of Deaths here, really primarily just to get these, casters killed. We do want Wailing Winds, on a chassis that's going to be able to survive Murdering Winter and probably Flames from the Sky. So all these guys have been twice borned, and hopefully they'll kill some Vanheers for us. This is maybe a questionable use of death gems. It might actually just be better to go suicide them in just to get them killed, because we don't have any penetration gear on them. Obviously, if we were to put penetration gear on them, we would lose that gear, but Vanheers, being elves, have decent magic resistance, and without any penetration gear, Wind of Deaths are likely to not do that much, so I don't know if it's worth the 6 death gems. There's definitely other things we could be spending them on, but, we're going to give it a shot. We're also trying to beef up our defenses here on top of the throne, bringing in a Sea King, doing a little bit of twice borning, some terracotta soldiers for some chaff. It doesn't actually look like Niflheim has all that much in their capital, but this is their capital, and we've kind of lost sight on a lot of their internal territory here, so it's entirely possible, they're going to bring up reinforcements. And I am expecting, a relatively heavy blow to be falling on this throne. So hopefully we'll be ready for that. We're definitely not ready for a heavy blow to be falling on this throne. This is a lot less likely to get hit immediately, but it's not that far from Niflheim proper. And of course, we're getting to the point in the game where astral travel is going to become a very real possibility, where they can just teleport their army out. Niflheim is not quite in range for astral travel. It's 5 provinces, but there are items that can, boost the range of spells by a bit. So with those items, they definitely are in range, and of course they could always, build a lab here and a fort here, and then, jump off from that point. So I do think that it's going to be worthwhile to try to defend this a little bit. So, we're bringing in some more mages, but it's still pretty rough. And then that brings us down to this southern army, which is just going to hang out and research and site search. And at this point, I'm just really not sure what to do with this army. I think the plan was hopefully to bring in a bit more chaff, because we're kind of down to it in terms of the numbers. We have some powerful mages here. We have some good mages, but there's just not that many units. And frankly, there's too many things that we need this army to do. We need it to hold off Ubar, and Ideally we need it to hold off Niflheim for the territory that we picked up from Agartha and Russ over here. But at the same time, leaving this throne in independent hands feels dangerous. But to reach it, we're going to need to continue to attack Macon, and I don't really want another enemy right when we're about to start fighting Niflheim. And I'm also not super confident about taking this throne. We've seen how fire snakes aren't great, but considering the majority of our chaff here is fire snakes, and we have a lot fewer. That's not great. The will-o'-the-wisps can be kind of bad. Everything else is pretty garbage, although scorpion beasts can be kind of nasty with that high poison damage. And the solar serpent is going to have a bunch of gems. Oftentimes the computer doesn't make great use of that, but he's going to be a unit with a ton of hit points and probably relatively high pathing in astral and fire. So even if it blasts out a bunch of fire elementals, that could be kind of rough for us. And of course, if we fight this and we fight Macon to get through it, we did scry on top of Macon this turn. There's not too much in there, but there are a lot of elder cyclopses, and they do have a mother of monsters, right? They're pretender, so it's not like Macon has nothing. And if we spend our time, fighting the remains of Macon's army, as well as their mage corps, and then this independent throne, and then Niflheim is probably going to be attacking through this area, they're already fighting Ubar, of course. But in 3 turns, they're going to be hitting our provinces. I'm just not super confident that this army is going to be able to take this throne and then still be able to resist things. So at least from here, we're in kind of a more central position. Of course, the other thing too is that, if we send our army south to go deal with all this other stuff, AI Ubar is definitely going to push into our territory as well. We don't have a ton of territory, so while this is going to become all about thrones, we do still need territory to draw gems and income off of. So yeah, at this point, I'm just trying to split the difference, and there is a lab here, right? So we can do some summoning and replace some stuff, but we don't have a ton of gems to be doing that with. So at this point, at least, I don't have a brilliant plan for what this army is going to be doing. And then also, speaking of non-brilliant plans, we have our eagles hanging out here sieging this fort. I think it's severely damaged, so we should crack it and theoretically be able to take it before the war with Niflheim starts. At least over here, we can see Niflheim has probably used some remote attack spells to take some of Russ's territory up here. There's also a stack of eagles here. So, Niflheim is going to be interested in trying to take this throne and a lot more focused over on this area. So we might actually be able to get away with, taking this fort before the war starts. But again, we just don't really have much over here to defend it with. We don't really even have much inside of Helheim. We are trying to do a little bit of recruitment down here. Not recruiting mages, sadly. Probably should have cut this troop recruitment and recruited mages instead. That said, we don't have any chaff either, but Helheim has been absolutely wrecked, so it's not really even that useful of a province in terms of income and a recruitment center. Of course, it does generate a good amount of gems, so we do want to hold on to it. But between trying to hold Helheim and this throne, and this fort, I don't know. It at least provides a good choke point. So in that sense, perhaps we can try to defend all of these things from Niflheim at this location. But again, this late in the game, magic movement is a lot more common. So you can't really count on a fort blocking access to provinces behind it. Otherwise, fairly minimal recruitment. We do have some mages getting recruited. I think we're pretty close to full mage recruitment. We're definitely cutting in places. Of course, Burden of Time is still down. And I have actually noticed that at this point in the game. But Ill Winter, is still causing problems for us. And just because Burden of Time is down, that doesn't reverse all the population loss. All that, we're just continuing to struggle to recruit. In retrospect, probably should have moved some of these garrisons out. They're relatively small and, in some ways, maybe dissuaded Femoria from attacking. Probably not. Femoria more or less can go where they want. So probably should have shifted some of these garrisons over to the throne provinces. But that covers the majority of our recruitment. We are doing a bit more recruitment on the border with Niflheim as we're expecting to be fighting them. Also of note, we're moving out a bunch of our stealthy mages in preparation to do some swarm raiding in places against Niflheim. So, even though we probably won't be able to hold on to it, the more that we can force them to spend time recapturing, their territory rather than attacking our territory, that's going to be a bonus. And the research situation is unchanged from the previous turn. So yeah, I think that more or less covers turn 85.